Good day, kids! Our subject for today is science, and today I will discuss to you about modes of reproduction in plants. I am teacher Lani. Like other organisms, plants can also reproduce using different ways. In the previous lesson, you learned about how plants undergo sexual reproduction. At this point, you will recognize other means of plant reproduction, specifically through vegetative propagation. Vegetative propagation is an asexual reproduction in plants using different parts like stem, roots, and leaves to produce new plants. Asexual reproduction does not involve the use of seed to propagate. This lesson will give you an understanding on the different modes of reproduction among flowering and non-flowering plants. Doing the different activities or tasks in this lesson will help you identify the different parts that can be used to produce new plants aside from seeds. Preliminary activity. Are you familiar with horseradish, fiddlehead fern, and mosses? If you know them, have you tried looking at their parts? Try to draw each plant and complete the chart. The previous lesson provides you to understanding about flowers as a reproductive organ of fruit-bearing plants to produce seeds to grow new plants. In general, plants are classified into two major groups, flowering and non-flowering plants. Flowering plants are those that have an obvious flower as accessory organ. In botany, or branch of science that deals with the study of plants, they are called as angiosperms. Plants that belong to angiosperm family reproduce bisexually by means of their flowers. The presence of flowers may give clue that the plant produces seeds that mature within the fruits. There are two groups of angiosperms. Number 1, dicotyledonous and monocotyledonous plants. Dicotyledonous plants are plants with netted veins and with two cotyledons in its embryo. Some examples of dicotyledonous plants are beans and peas. Monocotyledonous plants are plants with netted veins with one cotyledons in its embryo. Some examples of monocotyledonous plants are bamboos, bananas, and lilies. Monocot have single cotyledon. Seed, 1 cotyledon. The root, 5 roots. Vascular or stem are scattered. Leaf, parallel veins. The flower are multiples of 3. Example of monocot is a corn seed. Parts, cotyledon, embryonic leaf, sheath, fruit tissue, seed coat, endosperm, embryonic shoot, and embryonic root. Dicot have two cotyledons, taproots, ring stem, branch veins, and 4 or 5 flowers. An illustration of dicot part, epicotyl, hypocotyl, radicle, seed coat, cotyledon. Learning task number 1. Observe your surrounding. List down the plants that possess the given description below on monocot and dicot. Flowers are important for plants to bear fruits and produce seeds. However, there are also plants that do not use flowers for reproduction. These plants are called non-flowering plants. Learning task number 2. There are non-flowering plants that do not produce flowers and seeds. There are plants that produce spores. There are plants where seeds are not developed inside the parts of the flowers. In this activity, try to rearrange the jumbled letters to know these plants. Gymnosperms. They are plants that use cones to house their seeds. They are woody plants and most of them are trees. Bryophytes. They are the simplest plants and are not well adapted to terrestrial life. Seedless vascular plants. They have specialized stem that moves water and nutrients from the roots. Some use spores to grow new plants. Mosses. They are small plants that produce spores for reproduction instead of seeds and don't grow flowers, wood, or true roots. Write the classification of mosses. Ferns. Ferns generally reproduce by producing spores, similar to flowering plants. Ferns have roots, stems, and leaves. Write the classification of ferns. Conifers. They produce cone-bearing seeds. All living conifers are woody plants, and most are trees. Pines are typical example of conifers. Write the classification of conifers. Learning task number 3. A herbarium is an album or scrapbook of dried compressed flowering and non-flowering plants. It may contain all parts or some parts of plants. To make a herbarium, follow the following steps. Number 1. Collect plants or plant parts. Compress using an old book or any material where you can pattern the parts. Number 2. Paste or glue them on each page. And number 3, indicate the name of the plants and its classifications. Thank you, kids, and have a good day. I am Teacher Lani.